Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Monday, May 16th. First video in a couple days, or end of day video in a couple days, because I was in Vegas for the FinTwit conference, which was great. Great event. Can't wait till they have another one. Vegas, always a great place for a conference. Of course, if you're a member, was able to send out some videos, of course, and some shorter videos throughout last week, but there were no end of day videos. All right, so let's get to today's price action. I don't know, what do you want to call today's price action? Whippy, choppy, back and forth price action. And we actually finished like basically on this 5-minute bar. We basically finished where we started for the day. We actually got a little bit outside of the value area for the day. That was a little bit exciting for about a half hour. And then once started to see the VIX kind of move back up for the day. And just like how this market has been in 2022, is that kind of sometimes once it starts to go down, it just, there is no holding a moving average, or even these short-term moving averages on the 5-minute bar. This market's just, there's sellers that are just knocking this, knocking the market back down. So we've seen that, to a lesser extent today, because we've certainly seen a lot bigger selling pressure, but you can see that there's definitely sellers in this market that are still, having to trim positions. Why do I know this? Because whenever we rally, that's exactly, and for the last couple of weeks, prior to the end of the week last week, it would just be, you would see this on the 5-minute bars. You would see like a nice green bar, and then all of a sudden, whack, sellers would be taking advantage of any movement up. So it's getting a little bit less dramatic, but the market is definitely moving sideways, and some areas of the market are still getting they're still getting hit pretty hard. So if we look at the performance for the day, the S&P did finish down 37 basis points, but again, over the session, and hopefully you could see this, I'll zoom in here a little bit, but this is the movement throughout the session. You could see it was basically nothing. The Qs underperformed today. They were down 1.2%. Higher growth areas, especially those growth at any cost names, the ARC names, those really got hit hard once again, down 5.9% today. Just amazing. Even in a day where the market was more flattish, like we were just going over the S&P 5-minute chart, that those areas are getting beaten up. Interesting for the day. A couple other things here too. I could actually take this out of green. This was around like 1 o'clock today. Also, bonds gave back their gains, so I could take this actually off today. So TLT actually finished in the red today. TLT was basically green for the whole day. Again, bonds really matter right now because of, first of all, they've been moving faster than normal. And the yields, right, is high. It's interesting that the 30-year bond actually finished positive, right? When we look at the 30-year bond futures, TLT, of course, is different. It's a different maturity, and that's actually below value versus the 30-year bond futures, which are just inside the value area. All right, so let's talk about it. And then there's a couple other things too. The VIX is all the way down at this point to finish 2747. And if I just told you that the VIX was down about 5% on the day, you would probably think that there was a pretty good day in equities. Not so much. And that's kind of just the way that the VIX has been acting recently. So a move down, normally you would call that a bullish divergence. But we've seen a couple of these, and they really haven't been that great signals. But I'll still mention it. VIX down, market down. That's what's known as a divergence, and it's usually a bullish divergence. But so keep that in mind. Keep in mind tomorrow as well. This little guy over here on the right speaks. The Powell speaks at 2 o'clock tomorrow. I think that we do get another Fed speaker too. that we get for tomorrow. So, there's a lot of Fed speakers again speaking this week, giving the market mixed messages or confusing the market, however you want to call it, but they will be speaking this week. Let's go back to the S&P chart just for a second. Looking at the daily chart, again, not much to really take away from the price action for today because, like I said, we didn't go anywhere, but we are above the 5-day moving average. Right. We had the VPOC takeout last week, which was a really good signal that a bounce might be coming. That was on Thursday. We got the bounce on Friday. What I'm watching this week, and we got very close to this level, is 40.48. Right, 40.48 is the top of value for the week. That's something that I tweeted out last night. For now, we're just kind of hanging inside value, looking for some direction. Remember, using the value areas, using volume at price. Right, so this value area is based on last week's volume at price. So this shadow here is the volume profile. So until we, and being inside value for the week, we're kind of directionless for now. So the signal would be 40.48, right, to get out of that range, or 39.40 that we're going to have, more weakness. If you want to look at how the Qs line up, or if you want to look at, the Qs rather than NASDAQ futures, we're a little bit lower on that range than the S&P. They did underperform, right? 305.15. You could jot down that level. That would be the area that we need to overcome to kind of get out of last week's range, and 294.39. Right, and that's how we look here too. We're kind of right at this 5-period moving average. So again, we kind of covered this a little bit in the morning session with members that, this is kind of a very wide open space. Like we could bounce a little bit more, but we certainly have some overhead things that we could get rejected at. All right, and so what did perform well today? A lot more value areas. So for example, not to be confused with a with the value area on the market webs, I'm talking about energy, gold miners, agriculture, healthcare names, that type of value. All right, so a little bit confusing there, but yes, OIH was very strong. We're talking about this XLE. It's one of the few sectors that's above the 50-day moving average, still breaking out, hit new highs today. Intraday, I don't know if that's it doesn't look like that's a closing print. It's very, very close to a new high there. But if you go through some of these names, the names that I've been talking about has been Conoco, which is up 3% for the day, right? Almost out to new highs. Exxon, which didn't move as much as a couple other names, but still. Exxon also hit an intraday new high, didn't close exactly. Maybe it did close for a new high, right? And then CVX, which has also been very strong, that's at the top of value. Had a real nice day today, up 3%. Then, just a couple of these other names, Devon Energy, new highs for Devon Energy. Oxy had a really nice day today too. That jumped out to new highs for the year. And and then you can go up and down some of these energy names, and they just continue to kind of work very well in this environment. Right, we can go through a bunch more of these. I took some Halliburton. I saw some Halliburton go up in terms of call activity. That did get into the value area for the month, right? So that's above 36.68, as well as the 50-day moving average. So I like the price action there. A few other areas that I thought that were interesting today. So again, the performers, the healthcare did very well. Merck continues to break out very, very nice, especially we've talked about this now a couple times, this weekly chart, right? A lot of sideways for basically 2 years, right? This is sometimes how it works, right? Sometimes, just patience is required for certain names. Once, had a nice big move up. Again, we talked about this in the towards the end of April. We talked about this chart setup, right? And it's working very, very well out to new highs. Bristol Myers is another one too that's putting in a nice bull flag. Looks very close to breaking higher, but it's been close before too. but that's another name in healthcare to keep your eye on. The beverage companies, I don't know why, like I've talked about these, first of all, there's just not a lot of areas that are trending very well. So when you find a theme in this market, even if it's something as boring as beverage companies, so what I'm referring to is Coca-Cola. That hit 66.40, which is the top of value. I got into some Monster beverage last week. That moved up just a touch. I was actually able to take a target, right? This market right now is all about taking targets, right? Taking profits where you can. And then of course, if you still like the name, you can, put the name back on because the market is letting you do that. All right. So Monster beverage, Constellation Brands also, looks like it wants to turn the corner here. I like this weekly. Is it the weekly chart as well? No, it must be the 1 hour chart. 1 hour chart too. It's very close. Look how it's consolidating there on the top of value, like right at the turning point. So if it doesn't hold 249, then you know that it's not ready to go higher yet. But that's another name in that group. All right. So there's a couple other ones too that I think are interesting within that group. Another one, and specific, right? Not the whole material sector, but the chemical companies. ChemWars, had another nice day. Remember, this is a name that had good earnings, kind of came back in, landed into the 20-day moving average, has been strong since then. Dow is another name too, even though, again, a lot of these names didn't close on the absolute high, but this one also looks like it's trying to kind of resolve back to the upside. It's going to have to get through some of these hurdles here, but still not bad at all. What else in this group? LYB, right, is another one too that I would watch tomorrow. It flirted with the top of value, but couldn't break higher. OLN is another one too. Did finish positive for the day. Right, so all these stocks that I'm talking about were some of them were were positive on the day. Some of which were actually more positive than they ended up. I took a position in Deere early on in the day. I just like the spot here at the 200-day moving average, right? This market is not about chasing names, right? Or, even like closer to a breakout. Those it can happen, right? But those trades are a lot more difficult, I think, that versus names that have sold off. So for example, Deere hit a high of 446 down to 374. Another one too is in this steel space. Right, Nucor is down about 30% off the highs. You do have a technical signal here, VPOC being taken out. And if you look at the weekly chart, it's right around that top of value. So a logical place, again, just a gigantic move to the upside. And then, another big move to retrace that breakout move. Right. Another one somebody mentioned to me on Twitter, which I like this as well, which is Alcoa, really got hit on earnings. This is where they reported earnings. They weren't acting well going into the earnings report. They had trouble making a new high, so they kind of failed here right before earnings, which kind of was a signal there. And then this thing broke. Again, that was when the stock was around $90. It's down to 60 now, so it's been cut. I did not take this one, but this is something maybe to put on the radar. And again, try to as easy as you can make trades right now, the better, in my opinion. Always easy trades, I think. But you got the 200-day moving average. If it doesn't hold the 200-day moving average, you get out, right? And you get out hopefully with a small loser. I was listening to Mark Minervini. He was at the FinTwit conference, and he gave his presentation. His was virtual. I think a couple hours after mine was, but really great how he's listening to how he's tackling this environment, and I agree with a lot of what he had to say. I'm a big if you're a regular viewer of my videos, you know that I talk about taking small losers, right, and having no problems with admitting that you're wrong from trade to trade if it's just not there, right? The key is not to take a big loser. right, is to take small losers, small losers, paper cuts, they're fine, right? And that's the name of the game right now, right? If you want to be a profitable trader in this market, that is how you do it, is not taking any big losers, having a bit more winners. But yeah, you just can't let you can't get stubborn with this market. This market will prove you wrong, right? So that's how I would, if I were to take a trade here, it would be right on the 200-day moving average. All right, so we talked about a couple names. What else was strong? The shipping names. Now they're going to report earnings this week, but Zim was very strong. I think they report on Thursday. Is it 518? Right. DAC is another one, right, that had a nice day today, up 2.3%. STNG was up 4%. Right, so that's another group that remains fairly strong. What else did I want to cover? There's a name that I got involved last week, Berkshire, right? Also, hit a high of 362, down to 309, not in a downtrend, still holding to the 200-day moving average. So I added a position there. Rest of my trade blotter is here, right? So again, pretty, not bad, pretty decent, pretty decent day. Just, it would have been nicer if we didn't, close right where we started the day. Another one that we were looking at today at the Tribeca Trade Group is AT&T. Again, not the most exciting name out there, but it did close above value, and maybe this thing can go up to 2177. Right? We talked about calls in this name because buying calls in AT&T is not expensive at all. All right, and that's one way to play it. All right, one other name too, I'll kind of leave with this one, Western Digital. That's a name that I'm watching for tomorrow. Had this nice gap up on earnings. The gap is almost got filled, but it's hanging in there, above the 5-period moving average, also above the 200-day moving average. I find that this one interesting. I actually added into the TTG trend portfolio today. All right, a couple names that report earnings tomorrow. Home Depot, that should be a really interesting report. But they don't have great earnings history, right? I always look at this column, right? Regardless of the numbers, whether or not they beat earnings, they didn't, whatever their guidance is going to be. The most important thing is price. If price is going to go up on that release, and you can see, I think out of the last 10 quarters, which gets you down to here, they've only rallied on one quarter. So I don't have anything on, but I'm definitely watching. Walmart is another one, right, that reports. You could see it's not the best earnings history. What I like to see when we talk about earnings history is something like this, right? A service now, right? That's very, very consistent. They went up 8%. Now, of course, they've given back a lot of those. They've given back those profits just because of the overall market conditions. But for the day of earnings that they report, after earnings, they're a very consistent one versus the other two that we just looked at. All right, guys, have a great night. If you are not a member of Tribeca Trade Group and you want to check it out, go to my handle here, click on here, and you can become a member. Again, I think we're doing a pretty darn good job in this market right now. PSX, that was another name that I took some profits in today. The refiners have been really well. So we've really been doing a good job at finding where you can kind of hide out in this market, make a little bit of money as the market is trending down and is in a bear market. We're still kind of chugging along. Of course, we're not doing as well as I did 2 years ago when I was up over 300%. It's just not the market environment right now. So as Mark Minerini said, you really just have to be patient and wait for better market circumstances, right? And have a decent, for me, it's having a decent cash allocation so that when the market does act a bit better, right, then you can deploy that capital when it makes sense. All right, guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.